My name is Joanne Chang. I am a pastry chef and I co-own Flour Bakery and Myers & Chang along with my husband, Christopher Myers. I had kind of a circuitous path into the food business. I actually studied math and economics at Harvard, spent a couple years after graduation working as a management consultant, and then from there I got a job in a restaurant. I knew that I wanted to be working in food, and so I got a kind of low man on the totem pole prep cook job. And once I started working professionally in restaurants, I fell in love with the industry and I've stayed there ever since. The first food place I opened was Flour Bakery. That was in September of 2000. It was just a bakery cafe in the South End, kind of my dream bakery.
So my name's Jody Adams. I have had 6 restaurants before the pandemic. Saloniki, which is a Greek fast casual, 3 of those. Also a place called Greek Street that was in Time Out Market. Porto, which is in Back Bay, a full service restaurant. Trade, which is in the financial district, and Trade at the airport. I grew up in a family that loved food, celebrated food, also traveled a lot in Europe, and lived in Europe twice when I was growing up. So became interested in food first and restaurants later.
From winning a James Beard Award to the coveted title Best New Chef from Food & Wine, Jody Adams has won her fair share of acclaim. But it all began at the family dinner table. Born and raised in New England, she credits her mother with giving her an appreciation of both fresh local ingredients and flavors from across the globe.
The first restaurant I opened as an owner was a place called Rialto.
What we did was to create a street, essentially, that takes you through the bar and into the dining room. It has the ability to be private or
Opened it in 1994, and I was a partner in the business. It was in the Charles Hotel, a fine dining restaurant, and I had that restaurant for 22 years. Closed it about 4 years ago. It was really well known, beloved, Italian, delicious, and served both the Cambridge and the Harvard community, as well as, people from around the world.
I don't know about the chestnut, but if you take a little bit of pear, I want them in the Italian tradition of sitting around a table and tasting all kinds of things and being casual and, sharing conversation.
So my name is Suzanne Mermelstein, and this is the only business I've ever actually operated, and this is the only space. I opened it in 2004, so it's been 17 years. And before that, I worked in the food business for other people, and for, many years before I worked for Jody Adams. I worked at, for Debbie Merriam at Panini Bakery, which was Biscuit, and they now don't operate in the same space. But basically, I just baked for about 14 years before I opened my bakery.
virus is spreading rapidly in China, and U.S. officials are very worried that it could come here. China has more than 200 confirmed cases of coronavirus, it's called, which produces pneumonia-like symptoms. 3 people have already died from this illness, which has spread to at least 3 other Asian countries. New video sent to CBS News claims to show...
I first heard about the pandemic probably, like most people, early 2020. And I remember hearing that Tokyo and Japan had shut down all of their public schools.
Are developing news this morning. Japan says it plans to close all elementary, junior high, and high schools from this weekend through spring holidays in late March in an effort to curb the spread
Along
of
the
the
same
virus.
time, I was scheduled to go on a trip to Arizona for a book signing, and it got canceled. And again, I was shocked because it had been a long time in the planning, and then they said, we're not allowing people to travel. And I remember thinking, this is that serious? I had no idea.
You know, I heard about it right around, I guess it was like around St. Patrick's Day.
The tradition canceled because of coronavirus. The St. Patrick's Day parade off the books for Sunday.
But in 2020, around St. Patrick's Day, like when they were basically talking about, you know, restaurants not being open and people not being able to go out. But yeah, I mean, I do remember in the beginning everybody saying, you know, it's basically going to be first, you know, a month or then 6 weeks, and then it was just kind of like, forget it, like nobody knows when this is going to end.
We couldn't envision what it became for all of us, this pandemic. I was actually traveling back from Africa in February, end of February. And when I went into Rwanda and coming out, there were more protocols put in place. They checked our temperature, they asked us about our health and all of that going into Africa. Coming back out into the United States and later in February, where I was there for about 10 days, there was nothing. You know, the US was not paying attention in the same way. And we heard, of course, that it was happening in other parts of the world, and we had cases.
A second straight day, we can tell you the virus has spread faster outside China than within that country. There are hundreds of new cases reported throughout the rest of the world. So here is the updated map. There are 50 countries and regions now affected, and as you can see, there's COVID-19 cases reported in every continent except Antarctica.
In other parts of the country, and then a case in Boston. And then in the beginning of March, we really started to feel the impact of the pandemic, and our businesses started dropping.
So I'm going to give you the sobering reality that this is a very big problem right now. And that the number of restaurants, I think, that you're calculating at 110,000 is underestimated. I was in Youngstown, Ohio yesterday. I'm in Chicago today. And the number of storefronts that are going to be permanently closed is much bigger. But this will be catastrophic if not solved very quickly.
Getting takeout doesn't help restaurants, especially in cities where rent is the biggest expense.
People didn't want to go out. People were nervous. They were staying home. Our staff started getting nervous about coming to work. You know, there were so many unknowns. We started putting protocols in place with hand washing and masks and gloves and sanitizer. But our businesses just plummeted. And so we decided, actually, 3 days before the governor and mayor announced that we had to close, we had already decided we were going to close our restaurants.
We closed for about a month, starting March 17th.
We did shut down kind of immediately, right in the end of March.
It felt terrible. It really, we closed. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't have any guidance. You know, we didn't know when we would open. Some of us thought, well, we'll just be closed for 2 weeks and then we'll reopen. But we really didn't know. And we didn't know what was going to happen to our staff.
We were starting to limit the number of people coming into the bakeries. And then we just made a quick decision. Rather than limiting the number of people, we needed to just shut down entirely because we didn't know how to operate with COVID.
An opening for very few days and out the back door. No more cafe. Like, we shut down the cafe and we just basically started to do taking out from the back door. And that's how we kind of got by in the very beginning.
The Mass Restaurant Association predicts 3,600 of the state's 16,000 restaurants are likely to close for good.
We also looked at how we run our businesses. We had to be more efficient because the revenue wasn't we were down 70%, 60-70% of what we were doing before the pandemic in terms of revenue. So our labor model had to change.
We definitely had to, really sort of distill our menu to the point of it was just sort of, we had just a fraction of our customers, but people who were very loyal and still, coming back and supporting us. But the numbers were just so, small compared to what they were. We were down a lot.
We were all trying to figure it out ourselves. We didn't know if we should be open, if we should be closed, how many people we should allow. And I feel like there was such a disjointed response from the officials who know better than we do on how to operate that we all had to figure it out ourselves. And that was a lot for us to do. In addition to trying to run our businesses, we're trying to learn about a health pandemic, and we're not health people, we are restaurateurs.
My name is Dr. Leonard Mermel. I'm an infectious diseases physician and epidemiologist. But outside of the hospital, in a restaurant or could be some other place where you're meeting people indoors, there may be one change of all the air in an hour. So you're indoors, you might take an hour for dinner, your mask is off. So when you don't have a mask on, there's nothing to block the viral particles from getting into the air. So you're sitting across from somebody eating for an hour, mask off for a long period of time, small amount of, the air is not changing. So it has all the ingredients for transmission.
Restaurants along the First Coast have put into place safety protocols so customers can dine in. But a new CDC study found COVID-19 cases may be connected to eating out.
Cambridge is considering shutting down indoor dining, citing a growing number of coronavirus cases here in the city. Now, the mayor tells us that's one of the options being considered at tonight's city council meeting, but stresses that no decision has been made at this time. This news comes at the same time that weather is turning colder and many restaurants may have to close their outdoor seating. Some restaurants taking to social media over the weekend saying without additional federal or state aid, they'll have to close for good.
This is our nation's restaurants. When COVID-19 pandemic struck, our nation's restaurants were some of the first hit and the worst hit. In 2020, more than 2.3 million restaurants jobs disappeared.
At Porto, we raised some money so that we could make meals for frontline hospital workers, and that way we could keep our staff employed. We worked with a company called Off Their Plate. It wasn't a company, it was a nonprofit that sort of emerged out of the pandemic.
Restaurants need business. Hospitals need food. And we help them both. Off Their Plate supports restaurants so they can hire back their staff and cook meals for medical professionals on the COVID front line. With your support, we can help take one thing off their plate. Find out more at offtheirplate.org.
When we first shut down, I think we were mostly focused on trying to figure out how to give our teams some steady paychecks. And then once we were able to figure that out through a combination of fundraising and pop-ups and just trying to raise money however we could, then we started to think, okay, we need to figure out how we can operate the bakeries and continue to do what we do. So we slowly opened one location, tried that out for a couple weeks, then another location. We had very limited hours, very limited crew. And then as more and more people got more information on how to operate with COVID restrictions, we were able to expand our openings and our team. Our guests were very understanding about the changes that we've had to make. It's been a learning curve for everybody in terms of doing mostly online ordering instead of in-person dining, in terms of asking guests to socially distance, in terms of explaining to guests that we don't have as broad of a menu as we once did because of social distancing. And
certainly at Saloniki, they were so happy that we were providing meals and they could come and pick them up or order them, that they could get delicious, fresh food, around the clock. At Porto, initially people were uncomfortable with wearing masks and, feeling like they had to be, following the rules. They wanted to come in and take their masks on and, go around and talk to people at different tables, but we were mandated to require people to wear masks when they weren't sitting at a table. Asking our staff to sort of be the police was not fun.
And they were very verbal about, they would come and support us. And a few of the people have just consistently supported us. The neighborhood is really supportive.
In the big picture, the government needs to step up with financial relief early on.
Benji, let's start with our reporting. The deal lawmakers are working on right now includes targeted relief for live theater venues, music venues, museums, but not restaurants. Why is that?
Well, the argument from the people crafting the deal is that restaurants will be helped, but they'll be helped through the existing PPP program, which is the set of loans that were given to businesses of all kinds of industries to help tide them through the pandemic initially. Now, that the money for that dried up months ago.
I'm sad about the people who have lost their businesses during this time, because many people will have lost their businesses, and it could have been avoided had the government stepped in sooner with grant money. But there is a bill that has just been passed that includes $28.6 billion for restaurants, which is huge.
The American Rescue Plan is $28.6 billion in grants for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund.
And if it wasn't for that, I personally wouldn't really be able to keep functioning. I needed all the help that I got from all these places to be able to keep running. And that's the reality.
Fried chicken sandwich with bacon and avocado, and just not Greek at all, but people love it. It's still on the menu.
Well, the first thing that we kind of had to do was basically pivot into creating an online takeout, to be able to pre-order, because we didn't have any of that going on. When we shut down, we were just pretty much like a brick and mortar in a bakery cafe.
So we did takeout at Saloniki. We already did takeout there, so it was really easy transition. To do more, we went from doing 20% takeout to 100% takeout, since nobody could come into the restaurant.
More Americans are ordering takeout these days as restaurants limit dine-in service during the coronavirus pandemic. That means more customers and restaurants are relying on food delivery apps.
The one thing that I immediately had to get rid of when I started was that we started to offer our own delivery, because it was just not sustainable to pay these, whether it was DoorDash or Grubhub or, Uber Eats, they were just charging these, outlandish percentages.
We really prefer if people come and pick up their food and not use a third-party delivery system, because they take a percentage of our what would be our revenue.
To deliver your favorite foods like Grubhub, DoorDash, and Uber Eats not only charge you, but also the restaurant. It's how they make commission. But some of these delivery companies are taking 30% or more from every order, leaving a lot of restaurants actually losing money.
That was our Trisha Keene reporting. Now, many of you are trying to support local businesses right now, and that's great, but that also means that you're probably using a delivery app. Well, it turns out those apps can cut into the restaurant's bottom line. Delivery services charge between 20 and 30% commission on orders. Some restaurants have had to increase prices to help cover the additional cost.
People not to just sort of gouge this industry. This industry really operates on very low margins, like and so anything, all that stuff really matters. When you're charged like 30% instead of 15% for a delivery fee, it's not like people can really sustain it or, get it.
I think that it was an industry it's an industry that's struggling. The amount that we pay for taxes, the labor model is all of the pieces don't fit together to provide a healthy bottom line for the restaurant owner. People do not want to pay what it costs to create a restaurant meal. The salaries or the wages of restaurant workers, the equity between front and back of the house. What you will see is often now there are kitchen appreciation fees that are added to restaurant bills that give the back of the house a little bit extra because they don't share in the tips.
And in order for us to really do what we do best, we need a lot of people. We just need more and more guests so that we can continue to feed people and make some money so that we can pay our payroll and pay our rent.
And, I think the world has recognized how important restaurants are, how many people we employ, how much a part of a community we are, and how much of a driver of business in communities we are. And we need to be supported.